It's time for Inside the Capitol, your weekly legislative update from the League of Oregon Cities. And now for a look at what's happening this week in Salem, here is LOC Lobbyist Tracy Rutten.
The first bill I want to mention today is House Bill 2306, and that bill is actually up for a hearing in the Senate Housing Committee this afternoon. The bill as it's currently drafted would require cities to grant building permits if the infrastructure in a subdivision is substantially completed. But the big problem with the bill as it currently sits is that definition of what's substantially complete is based on cost, not on the actual infrastructure that's built. So this could cause some really big problems, we worry, with vital infrastructure that's not in place before the housing starts to be built. So things like water, sewer, stormwater transportation systems that would be potentially incomplete. So we're working to amend that bill to better define what is substantial completion and provide some assurance for cities to make sure that we're not left paying for incomplete infrastructure that's necessary if a developer fails to finish its projects. So a bill that did receive a public hearing actually just this morning, House Bill 2449. This one is a very important bill for us as it provides really critical funding for 911 call centers by doubling the current rate from 75 cents to $1.50 per month. So the good news is that bill continues to move forward. We support that legislation. In other legislation that we are not supportive of, Senate Bill 543 is up for a hearing this week on Wednesday. That is the Children's Service District bill. We do oppose that bill. We are seeking some clarifying amendments, though, to make sure that cities that overlap a proposed district would have some ability to approve that formation before it goes to the voters. So a little bit more local control in that.
Okay.
And then the final bill to cover, I think, this week is House Bill 3427. That bill is up for an informational hearing on Tuesday before the Joint Student Success Committee. The bill proposes a new business receipts tax to fund K-12 education at an extra $2 billion level. We are concerned, however, about Section 12 of the amendment, which has been proposed, and that would prohibit cities and other local governments from imposing this kind of tax in the future. Okay. So this is a straight-up preemption. We do oppose that and are seeking to remove that provision from the legislation.
So what do you need help from members on that aspect of this? Do you need to hear from them?
We do, and cities can take a look at last week's bulletin article, and there's some information there so that they can reach out to indicate their concerns about that provision in that amendment language. There was a PERS reform plan proposed by the governor that did not, unfortunately, include cities in it. So I would encourage cities to take a look at the bulletin and reach out to their legislators to make sure that any PERS reform or revenue reform going forward includes all local governments. We are only halfway through.
We still have many days to go on this.
Absolutely, yeah. There's still a lot at play out there, and it's really important that cities continue to reach out and be active in legislation that's being considered because it really does make a difference and really does, I think, mean a lot for legislators when they hear from their local communities.
Before we close, we've got about a minute left. Anything else you want to impart? Any message to members or to our member cities this week? Anything to be on the lookout for?
Continue to read the bulletin articles that you see coming out. And I know there's a lot of information that can feel overwhelming at times, but I think really we're kind of entering that home stretch of a legislative session. And so there's a lot out there that is quite frankly, pretty concerning for our members that could really impact their day-to-day operations. So we want to make sure that folks are staying informed on what's out there. The bulletin is a really great way to do it, but don't let up on that grassroots effort because it makes a really big difference for us as we try and do our jobs to represent them in the building.
Thanks for listening to this week's Inside the Capitol. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the bills that Tracy mentioned, as well as a link to the LOC Bulletin for more in-depth information on these bills. As always, if you have suggestions for topics for this podcast or for City Focus, please send me an email at cityfocus@orcities.org. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to get notification when we publish new content.